Hi, I'm Valerie Engelhart. I am a watercolor artist living in the Pacific Northwest, and today I am actually going to be working with gouache. I received this Holbein Irodori Spring set from my friend for my birthday last year, and I've been neglecting to really try it out and play with it. In addition to that, I've also got this frame that I bought, but all of the artwork I own is too small for it, so I thought, let's make a piece, make it perfectly sized for this frame, and I'll use the gouache that I got and try it out. So the first thing I did was actually use some of my Rockwell Canada watercolors to lay down a base layer, just a colorful wash that I can paint on top of. Now with my gouache, I'm mixing up kind of a green and a purple to put in where the foliage is. Right now, I'm just blocking in color, so I'm trying not to pay too much attention to detail, just get an overall shape and value. Now I'm bringing in a golden yellow. Now, yellow paint is typically fairly transparent. If I want to make this more opaque, I'll want to add some white, which I will do later. But for now, I just want to block in the color. I'm making a roadmap of where everything is going to go and lay on top of. Now I want to add some more dimension to my petals, so I've brought out a lighter color of yellow as well as my white gouache to make those petals more opaque, give it more form, because I don't want my darker layers to show through on parts of these petals. Now, petals on flowers can be a little translucent. You can sometimes see through them a little bit, so a little bit of transparency is fine and honestly desired even. But for the most part, because this is my subject, my painting is about this flower right here, I want it to have the most detail, be the most bold, have the most form. And what's interesting about this particular flower that I haven't mentioned yet is it's a mutated daisy that I saw at Trader Joe's. What made it mutated is it was as if the flower tried to split in two at one point, but it never did. So it ends up having one long curved center. So if you're wondering why my flower looks a bit weird, well, it's supposed to look a little weird because it is mutated. Just adding some petals to some flowers that were on the sides. It's nice to have a little bit more in the composition instead of just focusing on the single flower. It allows that yellow to go from one corner to the other. And now I am working on the mutated center. As you can see, it is long, it gets kind of thin in the middle before widening out at both of the ends because it does curve a bit. And so a lot of my attention is going to be adding different colors and textures to the center, calling attention that this is what the painting is about. It is about how strange this flower looks, and yet at the same time, still very recognizable as a flower. I don't normally use gouache. I'm still very unfamiliar with it, so I just keep going and layering more petals on top, trying to get, well, whatever it is I'm looking for. I'm so used to watercolor where it's transparent, anything you put on top, you see what's underneath. But with gouache, it's opaque, so you can layer over and over. And it doesn't behave the same as watercolor, so I'm definitely having a bit of a skill curve. Around the flower centers, there were these like itty bitty little petals, and so that's what I'm focusing on now. They need to be a darker color to help differentiate them from the longer petals. And I still am just putting a lot of focus, a lot of tiny little dots, anything that I can do to scream, look at the center of this flower. Now, I typically don't like to use black on its own, and that comes from being a watercolor artist. Usually, many of us like to mix our color of black. And you can probably see from how I laid out this painting, I was using purple as kind of my black color, as my darkest value, but I found that it just wasn't dark enough. I want these petals to really pop. So I'm going in with black mixed with a little bit of whatever's on my palette so it's not a pure black, to make it a little earthier, a little more natural and believable in the scene. And I'm just going around, and I don't want to add too much of it, just little triangles here and there to make some of these petals really pop off the page and give the background a little more depth. Last little bits around the center because I can't help but fiddle. At this point, I decide I want to add little bits of shine on the background leaves. I'm finding that even though it's doing its job of being a block of color that we can guess based on the color are leaves, but I want to give them a little more detail with the vining and such. Now, after putting in the white lines, I'll think they're too stark, and I'll go in and try to bleed some of them away. And by that, I mean I'll use some water to soften them, make them not so stark. At this point, all that's left to do is sign and remove the tape. And overall, I've got to say, I'm really happy with this set. The gouache layered beautifully, and I'm looking forward to working with it again in the future. So let me know what you think. Did you enjoy this painting? Do you want to try out gouache yourself? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to see more of what I do, go ahead and press that subscribe button. Thanks. Bye.